We'll go ahead and call it to order this February the 3rd, 2016 meeting of the Franklin County Commission. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Waymire.
Present.
Commissioner Renaud. Chair Howard.
Present.
Vice Chair Harris. Oh, sorry.
Chair. Commissioner
Fourth
Harris.
Abbott.
Yes, present.
Commissioner Harris. Commissioner Dunn.
Present. Okay, if you have an electronic device, if you put it on silent and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for the invocation that will be led by Reverend Lori Stevens.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God of all creation, we thank you for this day and the many blessings we have received. We thank you for the people with whom we have been in contact, our family, our friends, and strangers. We thank you for the ability to use our minds to discern your will and your work to create a strong and healthy county. We thank you for Franklin County and all who serve it, for those who teach and those who protect, for those who clean and those who repair, for those who work in parks and those who work on the roads, for those who plan and for those who make the plans happen, for those who heal and those who counsel, for those who govern and those who elect, for all who live in the best example of what it means to be a citizen. We thank you for Franklin County. We thank you for all in our county who are hungry, unemployed, and uninsured. We thank you for all in our county who are mentally and physically ill. And we pray for all in our county who live in violence. For these and all the burdens of our larger community, Lord, hear our prayers. As this meeting begins this morning, I pray for each person here. Give each person clarity of mind, creativity, compassion, due diligence, integrity, and a sense of humor. Give them listening ears and thoughtful words. Give them presence of mind and an open heart. Amen.
Thank you, Lord. Okay, that takes us to correspondence and organizational business.
None at this time.
Okay. We have no one signed up for public comment. Okay, that takes us to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda that today are the minutes from the January 27th, 2016 commission meeting, tax change orders in the amount of a minus $11.88, claim vouchers in the amount of $225,444.05, and to approve the payroll period from December the 21st, 2015 through January the 20th, 2016 in the amount of $1,164,878.30. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Commissioner Waymire.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn.
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. That leads us to our first item of business, be to hear from Paul Golden on, talk to us some more about the purchase of some differential pressure switches.
Morning. Morning.
After having more discussion and getting more information on the heat pumps and the geothermal, John, did he ever give you, send you the information?
Yeah, the commissioners, you'll see that I wrote a management memo, a summary about the issues, some of the issues that came up with this, and when we requested them to take a look at it was the use of antifreeze. The glycol system, there's a few specific systems, or excuse me, a few specific issues that are related to that and some concerns. I'll go over those right now. Part of the is that Using glycol or antifreeze in the system reduces the system efficiency by about 30% in their estimation, and so that increases the overall operating costs over the life of the system. The second point that they were concerned about is that that loss of efficiency means that it will need to work harder to heat and cool the building, again increasing energy costs. Glycol is listed as a hazardous material according to the EPA and requires on-site material safety data sheets. Along with that, spills, while a remote possibility, it would be pretty expensive to clean up, whether inside the building, and if the spill or leak happened outside of the building, that would be considerable cost to mitigate cleanup, soil samples, that sort of thing, to meet EPA guidelines. And lastly, probably the biggest thing was the cost. Bill Bassett, who we've worked with before on our HVAC projects, and specifically on this one, provided an estimate of what it would cost to retrofit the existing system, to charge the system with 30% glycol on 100 gallons, or excuse me, 1,000 gallons at $15 per gallon, plus labor and feeder equipment, is about $15,000. Replacement of the expansion tank, because the expansion rates of the antifreeze and water is different, so it would require a different expansion tank. That'd be $5,000. And then pump replacement to account for 65% increase in pump head. And I had to ask what that was. That is expansion of the fluid. So to account for that, you would need to change out the replace the existing pumps. That would be $10,000. So the total to change over to the antifreeze system would be about $30,000. And the last thing that he kind of brought up is that the differential pressure switches that are being proposed, that is the easiest issue, easiest fix to make, and that it addresses the actual issue. As he explained it, the actual problem is that the flow continuing when the heat pumps are not functioning, and if that happens while it's in cold weather below freezing, then that could freeze up the pumps. That is really the problem. Instead of the symptom, as he put it, the pump's freezing because the flow continues when the pumps are not functioning. So if we just stop the flow when the pumps aren't functioning, this will never happen again as far as the repair that we had to make.
And that's what this differential pressure switch is going to do for us.
That is correct.
Then, because there's always the potential of failure in any mechanical, then what this would be put on some sort of routine preventative maintenance test to ensure that those switches are functioning?
Yeah.
And one thing that should be noted is Janet took a look at it, and because there was still funding left out of the bonding for that, there was funding still left in that. We can use that money out of there instead of out of any reserve funds to take care of this.
How much is left in that bonding issue? The total? Do we know?
I have it at work. I have it at the office. I don't know right
it's enough
offhand.
to cover. It's enough to cover this, and then there's some still left in there after this.
Yeah, definitely.
We're talking about $9,257 for this project, and it'll be 29 units, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're doing routine spring and fall PMs on it, what we can't do ourselves, so that involves they would be checking the pressure switches also when they do those routine checkups. We're also having it programmed to where when the system goes down, it can alarm and send an email to me, a work order to me saying, the pump pressure switch has all been shut off, needs to be checked. So it'll be in alarm mode and will notify me of that also.
Can it send an alarm to more than one person?
I can have it do that, yeah.
I'm just thinking.
I would think, I don't know, I'd have to ask them.
Redundancy, backup, more,
Okay. Any more questions for Paul on this?
I think it's pretty obvious, the solution, and I make a motion to approve the $9,257 to get these pressure switches.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the purchasing of the pressure switches. Have a second?
I second that, and I do appreciate Paul and John, your due diligence in doing the research on what we had requested.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. Thank you, Paul.
Just an update, they said it'd be about 3 more weeks on the unit that they are replacing, so we're looking at about 3 weeks out before they get that unit in and replace it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Next item of business is consideration of engineering services recommendation.
Commissioners, you have received in the agenda packet a letter from the Engineering Selection Committee. That committee consisted of myself, Blaine Finch, Derek also sat on that, Larry Walrod, have to think here.
Jim, Scott
Jim
Bird.
Haig,
Lisa.
down there at the bottom.
Yeah, it's at the bottom.
Mike Haefele, Dennis Tharp, Scott Bird, and Lisa Johnson. Through that process, we put out a RFQ, request for qualifications. We received 6 applicants submittals that they submitted their qualifications. Out of that 6, we narrowed it down to 3, and we had the 3 interviews with the 3 folks that we selected, the 3 firms that we selected. Out of that, there was 2 that stood out that we wanted to have a second round of interviews with, to ask a few more questions, get some clarification on a few different things. We went through that process, and at the end of it, there was a unanimous decision to go with, to make the recommendation to both boards, the City Commission and the County Commission, to work with PEC and Bartlett and West to see about engaging with them for these services. They have representatives here today in the event that any of the commissioners would like to have a conversation or ask them any question. Our recommendation is that, or request is that we get approval from the county commissioners to begin engaging in negotiations, engagement agreement with them to provide these services to us.
I'd like to say anything about the situation or anything to us?
Really, we're just excited to be able to continue this journey with you guys. It's really exciting to be a part of it. It's going to be great for the community, the county as a whole. And like I've said many times, this is a generational thing, and we're just happy to be a part of the team.
I just wanted to echo that as well, and our team, we've got some other engineering representatives here with us as well, are really excited about this. We want to thank you for giving us the opportunity, number one, to be the recommended team of choice, and we definitely look forward to Franklin County, the City of Ottawa, creating something, like David said, that's going to be generational and taking a step forward for all the citizens within the county to really create a destination spot with this new industrial park to bring in new business, jobs, and enhance the quality of life for all the citizens. So thank you very much.
Anyone have any questions for him, or this will?
Who will be our contact person? So it's work split between 2 firms.
We will work that out, but it's primarily going to be Darren and I. And we'll be the ones primarily coming and giving updates and that kind of thing. You guys on a regular basis.
Always like to say that people do business with people, not businesses. So I mean it, and to have one person, I guess, to me is preferred than 2. Not that obviously you're 2 people working together, but sometimes when there's more than one, that happens. How do you decide who does what?
Well, we've had, all along, we've had general discussions about the dividing line being water and wastewater being on the PEC side of things, and roads, bridges, stormwater being on the Bartlett and West side of things. And that's kind of how we see it moving forward, and that's what we're anticipating. But as we enter into really start talking about scope, those things will become clear.
I think there's going to be some natural crossover on some of those because all of this has to mesh together. They're not just going to design their half and our half, but because it all has to work together in the end. So honestly, really having a much larger teamwork on this is good because we're also going to do the cross-checking with the quality QA/QC to make sure it's done right by having.
And this isn't the first project that we will be teaming up on. We've got multiple projects that are ongoing that we've worked together on, just like this. So we'll be able to take that experience and apply it to this project.
Look forward to the progress out there.
David, you might introduce us to your team?
Well, I'm David Lee with PEC. This is Darren Ammon with Bartlett West, and we have Brian Austin with Bartlett West also. Brian is be primarily responsible for the roads and bridges and those sorts of things.
Sounds good. Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Do we just need a consensus to move forward, or do we need a motion to move forward with it?
A motion for authorizing me to move forward and begin negotiations.
Okay.
But before we do that, though, who was you brought it down to 2 finalists? Who was the other finalist?
Smith Klein Warren, is that the? I'm just making sure that's the right firm. Schaefer Klein Warren, excuse me, and then also Olson and Associates. They were the two, the other two, and Olson and Associates were the one of the finalists, besides PEC and Bartlett and West.
Cool. We'll make a motion for the county administrator to move forward with the project.
I'm sure the team asked them all kinds of questions and stuff. So I don't think we need to go through that again, but I'll make a motion to approve Bartlett and West as the, I guess it's designers of the industrial park.
Okay. Have a motion to have a second.
Well, you need a motion to enter into negotiations with Bartlett West
Right.
PEC.
Right.
I'll correct the motion.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'd second that.
Been moved and seconded.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. Okay, the next item is the discussion of debt reconstructing and bonding for the industrial park roads. John?
You'll see that all right. Commissioners, the last agenda item begs the next question. It's like, okay, we're going to start moving down that road. How do we pay for it? And that is literally the $1 million question on this. Just as a recap, the county has entered into a interlocal agreement with the City of Ottawa for the joint development of an industrial park. The agreement stipulates that the county will take responsibility for the development and construction of the primary roads, Montana and Kingman, and any bridges. Montana and Kingman roads right now, the construction of these two roads and the bridge that is on Kingman Road, those estimates are coming in at approximately $9 million. Part of the funding discussion is that I went to the financial advisors, David Arterberry with George K. Baum. They are the county's financial advisors, and also Dottie Riley and Tyler Ellsworth with Kutak and Rock, who provides bond counsel to the county. Out of that, 3 scenarios have been developed, and in that we were reviewing the current county debts and the addition of $10 million additional debt rounded that up to just $10 million to make sure that we have anything that might potentially come up. Future proposed debt services and requirements that are going to be needed for that to service that debt. And as we all know, probably the biggest thing right now is the unknown factors, the tax levy. Right now, as it stands at this particular moment, bond servicing, debt and interest and things like that is not under the tax levy or tax levy lid. It is part of, it is separate. It has some things that are just that these things don't count, and that is they are off the table, but that is subject to change. Those exemptions are in the process right now going through the legislature, and they're trying to move a lot of those exemptions out of that. One of that would be for the tax lid levy or tax levy lid on bonds and interest and anything debt and that sort of thing. So that is concerning to us as we kind of go forward. Getting some just the background so that this has been asked. Franklin County's debt capacity, generally the general obligation debt is 30% of the assessed value of all tangible taxable property within the county as certified by the county clerk on the preceding August 25th. KSA 10-306 subsection B. Based on those numbers, this is what we came up with. Right here you'll see that our statutory debt limit is $72 million. Out of that, we're only $4 million into that. And so the remaining debt limit is $68. So we're not anywhere close to approaching our debt capacity. Scenario one, I know it's going to be pretty hard for folks to see this but it draws it out what we're looking at as far as different things. And I won't go into some of the detail. I'll just hit the high points of what it actually means. What it means is in scenario one is that there's going to, what it would require is a increase of about 1.8 mils. And the thing that we have to keep in mind here is that we're trying to take the existing debt that we have, that $4 million, plus this $10 million, and add it in there and basically restructure our debt, kind of refinance it a little bit in order to make the best possible scenarios. Out of that, it's a 1.8, but you see that is high there for just a little bit. And then as our existing debt, these two blues, our existing debt, as our payments go down on that over the next several years from 2016 to 2024 and from 2016 out to 2032, as those go down, we step down that initial mill increase of 1.8 to a lower to get it back to about pretty even with what it is right here. And then we try to level it off over several years to the end of to 2037. So essentially what we see is about a 6-year increase a little bit, and then over time we start seeing that about year 6 we start seeing reduction in the tax levy. And it works towards a flat tax levy by 2026 and flat until it pays off. One thing I will say is that a pro to this is that it does not account for any increasing valuations. So that gives us a little wiggle room. The cons, obviously, is that, all right, that's an increase of the tax levy right off the bat. It maximizes the amount of debt that we have, restructuring this. Tax levy or property taxes will be completely used to service this debt. And probably the thing that is most concerning to me is that this takes us out to 2037, so approximately 21 years. And so anything that we have, and we've maximized our debt, or excuse me, our funding capacity for some of these things. If we want to stay as close to what we are now, we've maximized that out. The problem that provides to us is that if we want to do anything new during this time, these things are general obligation debts, and then also like the HVAC, the system for the courthouse. This is also the Justice Center, that sort of thing. So if we have any new projects that come up that we want to do in this meantime, we're going to be very, very hard pressed to do that because we're trying to keep the tax levy pretty flat, and in order to do anything else, we would need to raise it substantially to do some of those things.
Does that just takes into account, though, I mean, the status quo, nothing economically has changed. So you're projecting that everything in the economic environment it stays the same for that to be able to stay flat past
Right,
20.
and I will bring us back to is that if we get returned to, if you remember during the budget hearing, I talked about how we were seeing 7% on average growth of valuations during that time, but in about 2009 we hit that ceiling where we've leveled off at only about 2% or so growth in our valuations. So I think that is reasonable to think, all right, let's be conservative, is that we would only see 2% growth in our valuations. And like I said, the problem that brings to me is when I start thinking about, all right, if we need to bond some to build a big portion of road or to do some major projects like that, that is concerning to me. And I will also say that Tyler and David are here if either of you, any of you have questions more specific for them.
Well, though, looking at the graph, though, too, and that doesn't take into account, not that we could get it passed, but we still have a 1/4 cent sales tax sitting out there available, and you probably haven't taken that in consideration. That would
Not in this scenario, but in a third scenario.
Okay.
So.
I would point out, you mentioned a 1.8 mil increase, and that's exactly right. When you look at 2018, you'll see that section, that's 1.8 mil. You'll also notice the blue area there drops off in 2018. So the net increase, when you factor in the fact that your existing debt drops off a little bit, the net increase in your millage would need to be about 1.4 mils.
Okay.
refresh my memory.
What are these projects that are coming off?
Some of it is general refunding debt, and then these are the Justice Center and the HVAC system.
I believe the dark blue is those KDOT loans that we refund.
Okay, that's for the 30-some mile road project.
Where's the when you say Justice Center, does that include the juvenile?
No.
That's not part of this
at all,
because it's not paid. That funding is not paid out of
general
with tax levy.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? Moving over to scenario 2. This makes some different wraparound payments, and again, just a few different things to kind of make the numbers work, and then also really control the property tax, the levy increase, or anything else like that. And what you see again is a smaller increase, but an increase nonetheless. And then restructuring it drops some things, drops this area so that we can flatten this out beginning in about 2018. The benefit to that is that it's a smaller tax levy increase, about 0.75 to start, and then it flattens out until 2037 to pay off. And again, it does not increase, it does not increase, account for an increasing valuations. The cons, of course, are the increased tax levy. 0.75 maximizes the amount of debt that we have again. Tax levy will be completely used to service this debt. Difficult, again, to do any future projects if we do have any bigger projects that come up that we want to take care of. And lastly, this is the most expensive way to finance this project. The cost of financing on this way is about $700,000, so more interest is paid. Any thoughts or questions on that scenario? And again, I will just kind of reiterate is that this is, of course, the only beginning of this conversation. It's not, we're not looking for to nail down exactly what we're doing.
You're educating us today.
Scenario 3. If you'll look in this section right in here, on the sheets that you have, basically what you'll see is that an influx of cash revenue is that a potential revenue of some sort comes into play if we identify that, and that could be the sales tax if that was decided, but that comes into play right here to help with that. How that goes out to the chart is that essentially we see no tax levy increase whatsoever. It remains flat across there because we have that influx of revenue. The pros to that is, again, no tax levy increase at all. It's flat levy until 2037. For it till payoff, does not account for the valuations, increasing valuations, does not require a maximum usage of the revenue source. In this case, we have 0.25 available to us at this time, a quarter cent that is available to us. What we put forward here is the possibility of using about 0.09. So right at a 1/10 of a cent to increase that. And by doing that, that allows us to still have 0.15 left over. We haven't maximized that. But that helps us, again, achieve no increase on property taxes by doing that. Potential decreasing optional revenue source dependency. Depending on which option is chosen, it's possible to minimize the impact of local taxpayers. And what I mean by that is that folks that are coming through the community, they pay, looking at the numbers, the pool is somewhere around 20%. 20% of sales tax that we get generated coming into our community, that is generated in our community, comes from outside sources. That comes from people outside of Franklin County that are traveling through or doing business here or just what have you. And depending on which option is used, this is possible to generate revenue for other future projects. Going back, you'll see that it starts out as a high about $300,000 there, but as it goes over the next few years, it is reduced. that allows us a little bit of revenue so that we could potentially do some other things, so that we could have some, if we needed to do some other smaller projects along the way.
What, as it currently sits, what does a full quarter cent do for us on an annual basis?
Right around 850,000.
That's what that's higher than I thought. I thought it was like 700 something, but 850.
And that is depending on what is chosen. That 850,000, if we decided to, if it was decided by the commissioners, let's do that. That would provide quite a bit of. It would lower the impact on the property taxes, but it would allow quite a bit of money to do any other future projects that we need to do besides just this. And again, the initial would be about $300,000, leaving about $500,000 that we could put towards, if it was chosen to do different bigger projects, put towards bridges, put towards roads, different things like that. The process to do that is that we would have to go to the state legislature and work through our representatives there to introduce that as a bill to get that changed. The cons real quick is, again, maximizes the amount of debt that we have. That stays the same. Tax levy will be completely used to service this debt, even though there's no increase. Limiting extra projects. It requires the initial identification of an optional revenue source of about $310,000. May increase sales taxes if that was chosen, and requires change through legislative action, and then it would also need to go to the voters for approval. If it was, may require that if the sales tax was what was decided. Any questions? Dave or Tyler, is there anything that you would like to add or touch on?
I'd be happy to take any questions that you have that you would be able to.
Well, I want to talk about the sales tax portion of it. Though I know we'd have to go to the legislature, but you have to designate, because I'd have to go to for a referendum, and that would have to be designated on formulated on what they were voting, whether it was like for, you have to decide if it's economic development or public safety or something like that, and designating when you go forward to formulate the don't you?
And on that, we would need to look at more closely what it would be. But on this, when I start looking at bigger capital projects that we have well out into the future, we know that we have pretty serious problems with the district court building, things like that. If that was decided to do that, and we know that we have about 20 years left of life out of that particular building, but if we were going to do that, my recommendation is probably to do that. It would be just a capital project, a sales tax for capital projects. This would allow us, we have 250 bridges, 250 aging bridges within the county. We have, again, a district court and some different things like that to designate it as a capital projects for capital spending. I think that would potentially be acceptable, knowing that we have a list of things that we need to get done. That would probably be my first recommendation. Economic development is very, very limiting.
Narrow. And plus, we've already, I think that we beat that drum in Franklin County.
And I would absolutely agree.
As long as and that's where I was going with this, is that I think that if we would have, if that's the direction that we chose to go, we would have to structure in a different direction versus it being economic development. Although in doing that, it would wind up helping us with the project.
Right. And capital infrastructure, capital projects and infrastructure, if that was acceptable, that would give us the ability to take care of our buildings, the ability to take care of bridges, the ability to fund new buildings if that is needed, or anything else that might potentially come up.
I guess my concern is that we're looking at it too much as a, we're not incorporating the idea of going forward on this industrial project, how to pay for it, and all with operations. We have limited resources. We say that all the time,
Yeah.
but when we need more money to pay for this, we're not limiting it. If this is a service that's important to us, I think we need to look at all services and their importance. And I guess our first go-to shouldn't be we need more revenue. What tax should we raise? I think that there's absolutely no appetite for a sales tax increase, largely thanks to the state and
Yeah.
and the increase they imposed, and then of course the city was successful, thankfully, in getting their increase. But I think that's as high as anyone cares to go on sales tax, and I guess I don't think our first go-to should be to raise property tax. It's hard work, but it's what we're here to do. I think we need to go back, look at the budget, look at our operations, and decide what services and service levels are important.
And I'm with you on that, except that I take two things into consideration: is that the tax levy reduction that happened, and I think it was 2007.
Yeah.
In no way was forward-looking enough to account for 2009, the things that happened during that time. And as a result of that reduction, and then that hitting, and then the economy hitting, and the changes that happened there, coupled with hitting that ceiling as far as the valuations going absolutely flatlining at that point, huge cuts were made during that time. And we're only about 5 years removed from that, and still haven't recovered from that. And so my concern is that when we start talking about cutting out of operational budget, number one, I don't think we would ever get to the point where we would be able to approach that. But number two, I have serious concerns about we'd never be able to approach the dollar figure that we would need to fund that, fund this, servicing this debt. The second thing is that when we start looking at the biggest cost of any of it, of any of our operations, is in personnel. Yeah. And when we start cutting, all right, if we're going to make any real cuts, it's going to be in personnel. And we cut personnel very, very deep during that time. Our next step is that if we're going to go that way, we will need to cut staff, which will reduce services, which will reduce in some of our ability to function and be responsive. And so that is my concern. And quite honestly, I would say that if you start asking a lot of the department heads, we're running at minimum staffing, and we have for a number of years. We do I think there is some opportunities for some savings and some efficiencies, and we've put money into the budget to see about doing an organizational assessment. And some of that is potentially is reshuffling and moving some from staff from this office to this office, because we have some too many over here but not enough over here.
I agree it's difficult, and
Yeah.
I don't believe that you'll find the full, that's a huge sum of money. I don't believe we're going to go do it, but I think it should be our first move. I don't think it should be, our first move should be to, what increase in taxes with this debt service. I do think the first thing you do is look at operations. Maybe you can find some of that and mitigate the increase needed now. I guess the other thing that really scares me is it's eating up our ability to fund future needs said, the court building, the bridges, large number of bridges we have coming up. The 2 mile, the 30-some mile road project, that was a 2-inch overlay. And I mean, the problem 5-10 years ago that it was the life of the debt was longer than the life of the road, and I guess to me that's a monster coming up in and of itself.
Right.
So we may very well get back, I guess is what I'm saying, to the level that we had cut from, but there's a lot of other ways we're going to get there. I guess that just goes back to me to say that the first thing we need to do is look at operations. It's hard work. It's ugly work. We may not find much of a savings there, but it does, I think, need to be our first move.
I think there's a lot of things we need to look at that we spend money on, and some of the reason we do is because it's just been done for years. And whether it's really benefiting us or not, I mean, it may not be large sums that we can recoup right off the bat, but I think there's a lot of things that we do spend money on and stuff, and it's just been, well, is it helping us? Well, we've done that for a long time, so we just keep giving money there. But
to say you have limited resources and to mean it's one thing, and it's an ugly process of critically looking at everything we spend money on and being ready to actually take action. So.
And I know that since I've been here, I think we've done that each year on the budget process, trying to look at things and find ways, but I guess we'll just have to look again and look harder and see what we can come up with. But we knew when we got into this agreement it was going to cost us some money. We was going to have to finance it somehow. And hopefully it's not just something where it benefits us down the road and shows a return down the road for us too.
And that's one thing I will add to this is that one thing, and we didn't include it in here because we don't know, is that there was some discussion is that when we sell some of this, sell some of the property, because we are a third owner of that land out there, is that some of the proceeds, some of the profits from that will come back to go to this.
The bonds are callable, and this would be a question for David. Right. Do callable bonds, are they more less attractive?
Typically, a bond issue like we're talking about here would be callable in about 8 years or so, and with that sort of call feature on that, which is very standard, they'll get very attractive interest rates.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'd expect to put a call feature in the bond issue.
Any other questions?
What kind of interest rates are out there right now?
You know, on the assumptions that we used here, I was trying to be high just to be conservative, because these bonds wouldn't get issued for, we're thinking at least a year or so from now. But so the rates I used on here were about 4%. If you were actually selling the bonds today, it would probably be closer to 3%. The rate on a 20-year bond issue like this.
What's the debt service on $10 million over 20 years?
Well, typically, if you were to structure the bonds with payments each year that were equal, like you had a mortgage payment,
Sure.
I would think it would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000 to $750,000. But here, in order to keep that tax impact down, what I actually assumed was that during the first, however many years that is, it's about 8 or 9 years, that maybe 7 or 8 years, all we did was schedule interest only on those bonds, and 4% for $10 million would be about $400,000 of interest a year.
Sure.
If you take into account that your existing payments drop off by about $100,000, there then kind of becomes about a $300,000 difference that needs to be made up, and that's where, as John was mentioning, the potential other revenue source, the sales tax or a cut in expenses of $300,000 would get us to the point where that wouldn't require property taxes to be used.
Any other questions?
I guess before we close, I don't want to leave with a bad, culture for employees or anything. I'm not suggesting we go through the budget and slash the way the state does. You know, I guess it's been thrown out, cut off the nose to, you know, I wrote a bad check and I got to cover it, so we're going to cut some stuff. Not in that way, but to literally look at service levels. Is this a service that we're providing that is still valuable, is still relevant, and do we need to keep it? And not asking them to work for less or with less, but perhaps do less. So,
Absolutely, and I apologize if I didn't clarify that. That's exactly right. We would have to be very, very strategic in cuts. And just so we're clear, I mean, basically we've cut operations over here in operational budgets so that we could lower their tax levy over there so that we could raise it, but the net result would be the same,
Well,
the exact level.
And that's part of what we talked about in budgeting for doing an organizational review, so that when we do an organization, in the past when I've done an organizational review, it wasn't just looking at staffing, it was also looking at the functionality of the department to determine some efficiencies there, not just within the staffing restructuring, but also the work, the task restructuring potentially.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you, and everyone that I've ever been involved in, there were some efficiencies gain and some cost savings gain from doing the organizational review every time.
And just a quick update, I will say this. I'm sorry.
Do you have a time frame for this discussion?
What's that?
A time frame?
If you look, is that we're looking at about 2018, but we are, kind of wanting to start moving forward again with negotiations, PEC, to start the engineering process. I know the city is going to be looking at that. So it's not dire, but it is that we do need to kind of work through this and start identifying some things.
And the other part that you said up front, which though can't be said enough really, though, with what's going on in the legislature from the exemptions that currently exist in the tax lid, those exemptions may be removed. And not only that, not only may the exemptions be removed, but they potentially move up the effective date of the tax lid overall.
To this year.
To
That
this
is
year.
correct.
And so we've got some other things that are kind of forcing our hand, which is why we need to be looking at these things very seriously and coming to, I think, a conclusion, in an expedient manner, but having done our due diligence because of the hand that's being dealt to us.
Anything else?
Okay, that'll take us to staff reports. I do want to thank all you gentlemen for coming today and being here for us, so if we had something you could answer for us. Staff report.
I just have one. I am going to be down in Wichita at a meeting where we're going to be discussing tax levy lid, and the impacts that it's going to have on some budgets. I'm going to be out of town on Thursday. If I could have one of the commissioners take COFO that morning. If I don't have anyone there, I will request one of the department heads to take it if I don't have anyone that can do that.
Okay. You can do that?
I'll be out of town tomorrow.
Are you going to be in town?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I can have one of the department heads.
I'm going to Topeka that day, but I'll
We
be
can talk about it
I'll be available. So if none of the other commissioners are doing, my hiney fits the seat there anyway. So I'll be happy to go forward and do that on Thursday morning.
I didn't mean to put anybody on the spot.
No, I could have done it.
And that is all I have.
Nothing, Derek? Janet? Jim?
Glad we missed the storm.
Me too. The sheriff's coming up.
Jeff?
Update you on the active shooter training that we provided to the public this last Saturday. We limited our number of participants to 40 per session. we had 40 people signed up in the morning and 40 people in the afternoon. There were some illnesses, so we ended up with just over 70 people that showed up for the day. But very well received. We've already had several people that have contacted us hoping that we were going to do another session so that they can also get involved in that. And we teamed up on that with Gun Guys, and EMS was there as well to make sure that if there were any medical or injury issues, that those got handled appropriately. They issued a couple Band-Aids, and I think that's really about it. There was no Band-Aids for the Pride when our lieutenant got, manhandled and thrown to the floor, but they were there for it just in case. So we did have 2 other school districts in the county that have also reached out to us that are wanting to provide that for their staff as well, and that's something that we've been hoping to get done. So those were good things that came out of that. I did meet with our legislators and the lobbyists for the Kansas Sheriff's Association in reference to something that we had discussed previously, which is that the medical expenses that we have to incur on inmates in the jail, that if they're on Medicare or Medicaid, that falls on the county because they are not covered under their insurance anymore once they become incarcerated. And so everyone's aware of it. Everybody's right now they're trying to, it's somebody else's responsibility type thing between the state and the feds as to how that's all going to play out. But Representative Finch gave us some ideas I need to get with Derek about, and there may be some things, some way that we would go on that as well.
That's not, of course, Sheriff, you know this, but that's not unique to the state of Kansas. It's unfair. My daughter actually works as a social worker, works in a forensic unit trying to get people ready to go and stand trial and be competent, and the same thing happens in Georgia, is that as soon as a person's incarcerated, any state or federal aid that they're getting is cut off, and it becomes the responsibility of the local government.
Yes, and it gets very expensive really quick, depending on what they get diagnosed with while they're here or what happens to them. So we're just something that we're trying to find a solution to so that we don't end up, it's nothing we can really budget for because you just don't know. And it is a hardship that it produces on the county. So we're trying to figure out if there's a solution that can be done at the state level on that. There are a couple other things that we've been talking about as far as legislative things. One of those is the situation that we have with mental health and with Osawatomie State Hospital, the reduction over there, and our local senator and representatives have been working very hard on that, and we've got some proposals that are going on. They have been working with law enforcement on that, as well as Elizabeth Layton Center for input, and so it looks like hopefully we'll get some things accomplished on that so we can provide the service that we really need to.
Well, Leslie had sent out, it's been probably a week ago, talking about the potential recertification over there so that there would be an increase in the number of beds.
That's correct. But they're looking at some other local options that may be available as well. Then update on our employment status. I know that money was talked about this morning, and that's always a real fun topic to discuss. We still have several openings in our dispatch center. That is not unique to our dispatch center. I just went to a sheriff management seminar this last week. It's not unique to us, but the driving factors seem to be the same everywhere, is basically the pay for dispatchers. Did just a check of local companies, one that we have lost a few employees to. An entry-level, unskilled worker can start out at one of our local places at $16.85 an hour. That's more than $4 an hour more than we start at. That seems to be a little bit of factor that has come up during our hiring process. I just wanted to throw out there that we start at $12.83 in dispatch, and you can go someplace where lives are not on the line, and it's not a highly stressful or technical situation, and you can get paid $16.85 to start off. So it's a challenge that we've got. I understand budgets, but I just wanted to bring you what the reality is that we're having to deal with when it comes to employment.
And I understand, and money is important, but I'm a firm believer, and I've seen it in action, is that money draws people to an employer, but it doesn't necessarily keep them there. It's the money in combination with the environment in which they're in. I mean,
I
people
understand that. And right now, I'm trying to get them in the door.
Yeah.
And we are having a challenge doing that
Right.
because of that pay. And we're one of the lower paying dispatches in the area as well. It's a challenge we've got. We're trying to work through that. But I need to be fair to you all and staff that, hey, this is a challenge we have. We were going to have to do something about it at some point. So
How many vacancies do you have there now?
right now we have 3 vacancies. We do have 1 in training, but we have 3 vacancies.
So there will be 2, or there was 4, and then you got 1 in training.
There was 4. We have 1 in training,
Okay.
so we have 3
Okay.
that are available. Percentage-wise, we're staffed at about the same level as Shawnee County is. Now, for them, that means they're short about 20.
Yeah.
But they're authorized 42. So, that's just kind of where we're at. And like I say, it's not unique here. Dispatch centers all over the country are having some of the same issues, and there's a lot of effort going into that. But that's kind of where we are. If any of you want to come down and sit in dispatch and kind of see what it is that they do on a regular basis, please feel free to give me a call or Lieutenant Ferguson, and they'll get something set up and get you set up with somebody so we can do that.
I have, but it's been a couple of years. So.
Spent 23 years kind of watching
I
what you're
understand
doing, and
and now you want to stay away. I get
it's
it.
a tough job. It's a tough job. There's no question.
it's a pressure cooker is what it is.
It's tough.
Thank you.
How are you on your opening on the road patrol? You got that process that.
We had some very good candidates there, and we are at the oral board portion of that process. We've had a few things that have kind of delayed us a little bit through our process, but that's where we are now. We've done the testing. Now we're ready to do the board interviews.
Sure, none of those candidates want to dispatch, right?
No.
Okay, that takes us to commissioner comments and board reports.
Haven't attended anything since last we met.
No, I did go last Friday to the sheriff or police chief Butler's accreditation presentation at Copper Center. And it's a nice turnout.
Did they talk about what their return on investment from that is? Is there payback on that or anything?
Well, payback's better service, better way of doing things, and also getting grants and things like that.
Longevity of employees.
I'm sorry?
He also said longevity of employees, that you can get and keep better officers.
What's it cost to do accreditation like that? Is there? I mean, I'm sure there must be a cost to it.
There's
It's a 4-year certification, and I have to go through it again.
I haven't been to any boards. Actually, I'm going to the Heartland Works Incorporated in Topeka today. Last Wednesday, John and I went to the local government day up there, which I don't remember, John, last year it being combined with the League of Municipalities, but we were there with city folks as well. And the last session was, of course, the topic of discussion, which is John's going to on Thursday, was the tax levy lid. We did have the leaders of the Senate and the House there speaking about it, and I found this very interesting, is that the president of the Senate, Susan Wagle, is that right? She got up and spoke first. Felt like I was watching a tap dance. And I'm just telling you, I mean, John, you can dispute what I'm saying. And, of course, there was, would you say there were maybe, how many people in the audience? 200, maybe 300? There was a bunch. 300. I would venture to guess that most of the people whose butts were in those seats were probably Republicans. But then when the minority leader, Anthony Hensley, he got up and spoke, and he got an ovation, okay, talking about local government, interacting with them, respecting local government and all that. And then after they spoke, then the House got up. I think Ray Merrick, it was kind of a recapitulation of what the President of the Senate had said. Not much interaction there. And then Tom Burrows, the minority, of course, a Democrat, and he's talking about respect for local government, would have engaged you in the tax lid and all that kind of thing before we just imposed upon you, and of course got ovation. But what I found very interesting out of that is that the people that were the minority group speaking to the majority that were Republicans were speaking more to us like what we expect, to have respect and understanding and financial responsibility, than the people that are the majority. Would I be incorrect in that statement, John?
Nope, that was absolutely correct.
And every person I spoke to, and I spoke to some legislators. Actually, Ms. Tyson was there, and Blaine Finch. I didn't see though Kevin Jones there, and they're all talking the line of trying to work with us and things. And of course, Mr. Finch voted against the tax lid, as I recall, but they talk to us about, they know what a strain that's going to put us under, but they still put it out there. And they talk about how this is what the people want, that they want control over their government. And I spoke, every one of them I asked, though, I says, when the federal government puts their hands on, tries to control the state, you push back mightily. But then you turn around and do the same thing at the local government. I think there's a word in the dictionary that's called hypocritical. And that's what I feel about that, is that the state puts forward, pushes back on the federal government when they try to control what the state's going to do, but our state representatives and legislators don't hesitate to try to control what we do. And the people that are closest to the government that's closest to people usually, I think, knows best. And that's just how I feel about that. The other thing that John and I went to, or do you have anything you want to add to that, John? Probably not, huh? Thursday, John and I went to the Arvest economic outlook, talking about the U.S. economic growth. And Mr. Otterberry, you may have some input on this, but talks that it's still going to be some growth, but it's going to be slow but solid growth, and going to be small. They missed their mark on the projections last year a little bit, and they're estimating that the GDP for 2016 at about 2.25%. Would you agree with that number?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't follow the national economic trends as much as I do in the state, but that's what I've been hearing too. Yep. Growth but modest.
Yeah. And that for the depending how the fourth quarter truly finally calculates out, is that may wind up for last year coming in at 2.4, but depending on some calculations that may not be beyond 2.0. So anyway, we're going to have some growth, but it's going to be slow and steady. And they could not answer directly what the impact of lower oil is going to have. We're all, of course, feeling less pain in our pocketbook on an individual basis, but that, of course, is going to have an overall economic impact. I forget how many thousands of jobs I already talked about in the oil patch. I saw one estimate, though, not in this wealth management, but that the Saudis, let's see, they said a barrel to put the oil in cost $12. So if they could get oil at $13, they'd still be making money. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. And that's all I have, sir.
Okay. Monday I attended Williamsburg City Council, and they discussed some options on how to fund their wastewater project that they're getting ready to start and some different ways they may finance it. They also talked about some more sidewalks, and the mayor said he met with some subjects about when they could start working on the sidewalks and when they'd be able to get them completed. They still are discussing buying a lawnmower. They haven't done that yet, and they tabled it to look at some more options for the lawnmower. They talked about continuing municipal court at Williamsburg. They've stopped it for a while, and they discussed whether or not to restart the municipal courts in Williamsburg and also bringing back a code enforcement officer. And they actually tabled that to get more information on that before they decided. And then they talked about taking their Christmas lights down. And that was most of what that meeting was. And then yesterday morning, John and I attended the FCDC Executive Board meeting. John, feel free to add anything if you want to. Main topics was they talked about marketing on the industrial park area. They talked about 2016 Day on the Job. Dr. Cobbs was there, also talked about the school becoming more involved in the Day on the Job and helping keep it going. Talked about restructuring the board for the FCDC and how they were going to do that. Also, Dr. Cobb was appointed to the at-large position for 2016 yesterday. That was most of it. When I add that,
That's it.
okay. Also, I've been talking to some people on about some townships, and they had some concerns about some of the ways the townships was what they were responsible for and how they were spending their money and so forth. So I'd like to put that on the study session and give the administrator and clerk a chance to get some information for us about possibly what the townships are spending their money on, how much they're getting, and so forth, and do this at a study session and discuss that.
Do we have any oversight? I mean, they're elected. Township officials elected, aren't they?
They're elected, but talking about how their tax is based and how much they're getting and what they're spending on and so forth.
We wouldn't have any more authority over that than city commission, school district, any other taxing entity with elected representatives, would we?
Probably not, but I think what Commissioner Howard has said to me is that he would like a better, clearer understanding of what the townships are responsible for, and where their revenue comes from, and that sort of thing, just to educate the commissioners on that. And that's kind of my understanding.
There was one thing I can give you right off the bat. There was some concerns with some of the township people that are on it, and if their concerns are if they even really need to be there doing what they're doing.
Okay, so it's coming from within, not.
Yes, it's not
My concern being.
It's not a complaint on them. They're just concerned about, do we really need to be?
My concern being, it's already an area where we have a real trouble with buy-in. I don't know how many three-way ties we broke drawing straws up here because everybody got 2 votes, and we've appointed a lot of folks just because nobody even got 1 vote.
Yeah.
So anything, I don't think we want to disenfranchise people stepping on any toes. But if it's organically, I can understand.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? If not, look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.